This is the After Party, live with Kim McAllister. Pick a couch, grab a drink, and settle into the conversation.
Hey everybody, sorry I started that music just a little too early. Kind of went over each other, overlapped a little too much. But hi, it's a late start to the After Party Live because of the late finish of the Mark Thompson Show, but good stories from Courtney today. Tomorrow on the Mark Thompson Show, David K. Johnston Day, so it's going to be a good one. And Jefferson Graham will stop by the show as well. Today on the After Party Live, a lot of good stories, so let's dig right in because we don't have a lot of time to get to everything now, but hopefully we'll get to some of the good stuff. First of all, can we talk about this very interesting story about a sample of ice that was dug up from a Tibetan glacier? What it has inside, over 1,700 frozen viruses. It's what they call an ancient trove of microbes containing the most viral information ever uncovered from a glacier. They got this about 20,000 feet above in the Himalayas, where the only way to get around is via yak. They went to the glaciers and they removed an entire glacier core. They had to move these things to get them down into trucks to cart them to labs. 40 feet worth of segments, long frozen ice, carried down this mountain on the backs of yaks. They said they had a whole herd of yaks. Paleoclimatologists and glaciologists from Ohio State University were up there drilling and retrieving ice cores, and then they had to wrangle them back down. So interesting the way this all happened. But inside of the cores of these samples, the preserved genomes of 1,705 virus species going back as far as 41,000 years. The study done on this is published in the journal Nature Geoscience in August 26th. From one ice core collected on the Tibetan Plateau, scientists discovered and cataloged 50 times more viral information than they ever had previously from glaciers before. They call it a window into the Earth's climate past. They think that by studying these things, they can better understand what we're headed toward as far as microbials in our future. So the thinking is this, that when you see headlines about frozen viruses, they say it's about the human risk of pathogens revived from the permafrost, like in 2016. That's what you think of, right, when you think of microbes and viruses. But thankfully, they say the 1,700 genomes retrieved from this core are all viruses that infect bacteria and archaea, not humans or animals or plants. But they did once play a role that was really critical in the local environment there, which spoke to the diversity of the area, evolution, selection pressure, gene transfer, all of these things. They say viruses can even shape the ecological metabolism of a whole ecosystem. So among these glacier archives are viruses that potentially played key ecological roles in the past before freezing. That's why they call the data foundational for asking any questions about what the Earth previously looked like. Having these samples, 1,705 of them, now they say empowers scientists doing glacial work elsewhere to unlock stories that are in these other ice freezers. Isn't that fascinating? I'm fascinated by it. I don't know about you. Let's talk about the Unity game. This didn't go well. No, didn't go well at all, as a matter of fact. This was supposed to be a football game that brought everybody together, called the Unity football game. It ended early after a helmet attack and fights happened in Fresno County. This high school football game meant to, bring about unity, officials had to end the game early. They were forced to. Justin Garza High School hosted Central at Darren Colligan Stadium, which is a first because usually Central is that has the home turf of Colligan, but this was Justin Garza hosting. This is all about unity. Before anyone threw any punches, they say it was pretty clear things weren't going to end very friendly. The Central Grizzlies, one of the top teams in California, had a 40-0 lead against their opponents as they went into the fourth quarter. Then the Justin Garza Guardians punted the ball away. Most of the players on the field tried to recover the punt. 2 players stayed engaged near the line of scrimmage. And so what started as an aggressive blocking made its way to a shoving match and then an actual fight. And there's video on SF Gate of these players going after each other, running around the field, trying to go around officials to get to each other. Awful. One player from Garza threw down his Central opponent, causing the Central player's helmet to fall off, then picked up the helmet and hit the Grizzlies player with it on the arm before they started exchanging blows. Then players on both teams start fighting, and it's a madhouse. So the game of unity, not so unifying after all, unfortunately. Let's talk about big, heavy things, why don't we? These big, heavy things went into creating this amazing place called the Dolmen Megalithic Monument. When you see inside, it's amazing how things were moved. Here's the entrance. Look at those giant stones. And then here's the interior. Look at those giant columns. These Neolithic engineers built this megalithic monument with stones that weighed as much as 2 jumbo jets, according to CNN. The stones that you see here, there are 32 of them that make up the Menga Dolmen. It's this 5,600-year-old megalithic monument in southern Spain. It is a lot bigger than the largest megaliths at Stonehenge, which is, as many people know, the most famous Neolithic monument, right? This one is embedded in the ground on a hilltop that rises about 165 feet above the surrounding area. And the stones from this dolmen, or a single chamber tomb, are about 82 feet long, 16.5 feet wide at the widest point, and the largest single stone weighs about 150 metric tons, the same as a blue whale, nearly 5 times heavier than Stonehenge's largest stone. And if you add them all together, they weigh 1,140 metric tons, which is more than 2 Boeing 747 airlines combined. Wild. It's a huge, enormous amount of stone. And so the mystery is, how in the ever-loving world did they get these things moved? What happened? Well, enter the researchers. For the last 10 years, they've been looking into this study that was just published on Friday in the journal Science Advances, trying to answer the question about the engineering skills you would need to get this kind of thing done. One of the researchers said, "I noticed the stones were carefully placed without gaps, but this paper reveals how precisely that has to have been done, with an extraordinary eye on the dimensions and angles." That from Mike Parker Pearson, who's a professor of British later prehistory at the University of College London. He describes this as one of the world's greatest megalithic wonders. This project involved a geologist in the Canary Islands Oceanographic Center who tried to piece together how the stones were cut, how they might have been transported and then placed by looking at the topography and the geology of the site, information from the previous archaeological excavations, and ethnographic and historical accounts of building techniques from this time. They calculated each of the upright stones lean inward at a largely uniform angle, up to 84 to 85 degrees, that the upright stones that form the walls also lean sideways against one another at a consistent angle, so that the architect and the builders must have used tools like plumb levels and framing squares to achieve this kind of consistency and accuracy. The precision of the angles is millimetric. He said they made a Tetris out of this, like a computer game. The stones were also placed and carved so that they would be slightly inclined and perfectly adjusted to each other. Each block has to fit with the others, and each block support the others. So all stones are locked in and embedded into the bedrock. One of the other things the study found is how these upright stones were initially embedded, like with the use of counterweight into foundation sockets so deep that up to 1/3 of the stones would have been below ground when it was first erected. Then once the walls were completed, the builders placed 5 huge capstones to form the roof. They also had to remove the earth to the desired floor level, and then they had to put in stone pillars for extra support. So fascinating. Now, it's not exactly clear how this dolmen was used, but I think it was a temple or a tomb. But there have been a lot of archaeological remains found within this area. One of the reasons they think it was constructed to withstand the ages is because this area is seismically active. So maybe they knew that they had to build it to hold the test of time. Very interesting. As to how they transported these very heavy things, the team identified the source of the stones used to build the monument. It was a quarry about a half a mile away, 164 feet higher than the location of the Menga. The topography would have been favorable and would have allowed for transport of these massive stones down a gentle slope. So they had gravity on their side. They said they likely built a trackway or road to minimize the friction of the soft rock against the ground by embedding closely spaced timber poles or planks into the ground and transporting the stones using huge wooden sledges controlled with large ropes. Fascinating. So there's, again, what the stones look like on the inside of this thing. Here's the doorway, the entrance, and here it is at the top of this steep grade. Well, there it is. I guess a little insight into the mystery of how in the world this happened. Can we talk now about these sexy statues? I found this story in SF Gate, and I thought, what is happening? This is off Interstate 80 in the Sierra. There's a dentist that lives there, and he has a couple of interesting hobbies. Yeah. He likes teeth. He also likes statues. Kenneth Fox from Placer County went to USC for dental school in the 40s. He was the youngest dentist in California at the age of 21. And then for the next 20 years or so, he loved to play outside, outdoor recreation. He was named the best water skier in the area by the Sacramento Water Ski Club. Then in the 60s, he got into building statues. So SF Gate says by day he cleaned and drilled. By night he began crafting gargantuan steel frames. He, in 2008, said, "I had to build scaffolding 40 feet high and scale models and build from that. The steel work took 6 months, the concrete work 7 days, working 20-hour days." He learned how to use limestone and cement to form human figures with the help of instructors at UC Davis. He had to enlist the help of high school sons that he had, his high school age sons, with this physically demanding work. He said he wouldn't stop until he was finished. He made all these statues that are now living in this area. And I guess some of them are a little racy. And there are people here in this area that really don't want the statues on county property. So I guess they were trying to get him to move the statues. There were people that supported him and went to the county board of supervisors with support saying, no, don't do it. Don't take them away. Well, now these statues are living apparently along Interstate 80. This is where they are. There was a school bus route that had to go right by. And I guess they call them so shocking that they had to change the route of the school buses. This is along Auburn Ravine Road. It's about a half mile off Interstate 80. There are 40-foot tall figures, mostly nude, in these kind of, poses, different poses that you can see. An Amazon woman with a bow, another with a spear. You can see those too. Here's some more of the statues. I have other pictures too. Here's another one. Yeah, you can see it's anatomically correct. Here's some more. And I guess people don't want the kids in the school bus to see these things. So it's been a bit of an issue. But they've been here for a long time. People in this area know about them. So if you're driving past Auburn, check it out. Let's talk about these guys, these stranded astronauts. These poor people thought they were going up for a little while. They're stuck up there because their Boeing spacecraft started leaking. So now it turns out SpaceX will be bringing these Starliner crew members home. And the plan is to do it in February. This is Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. They have been stranded aboard the International Space Station since June. And NASA administrators were thinking, how can we bring them home? When can we bring them home? And so on Saturday, they announced they'll stay there until February. The Starliner craft that they arrived on, unfortunately, it didn't do so well. It started malfunctioning, started leaking, and it might not be safe for them to come home on, so they're not going to. I don't know what happens to the Starliner. Does it just turn into space junk? The plan now is for Butch and Suni to return with the crew from Crew 9, the SpaceX Crew 9, next February. The Starliner capsule, which currently remains docked to the ISS, they say will be returned to Earth unmanned, so it doesn't become space junk. They ultimately expect Boeing to be certified for transporting humans to ISS, although the first round didn't go so well. That's scheduled to be deorbited in 2031 when it will be 32 years old. So the next Crew 9 mission is scheduled to launch in late September in Florida. It will proceed with only 2 crew members rather than 4, which will then make room for these 2 to come home with them. Although the capsules can seat up to 7. So that's the plan, to get them back and get them home. So they've got a few extra months in space. Maybe they'll do some research. I don't know what they'll do. Maybe they'll just be hanging out, reading up there in space. Should we do the Lotto of the day? Let's do it. This family is lucky. This is a situation where a man had an uncle that was really lucky in the lottery, and so he decided he was going to play too. This man from Maryland said he was inspired by his uncle's $1 million lottery jackpot from the 1980s. So he told Maryland lottery officials that his uncle won this $1 million prize, and that's what made him go out and buy a ticket. So he visited the 24/7 tobacco and grocery and decided to use the same numbers his uncle had used to play Powerball, Mega Millions, and the multi-match game that replaced the Maryland Lotto a few years ago. He said, my uncle played the same numbers every week until he won. The uncle's numbers didn't hit in any of the drawings, but a quick pick line The man purchased on the same Powerball ticket ended up winning $50,000 in the August 7th drawing. He said, I saw that I won $50,000 on the screen. It was the first thing that popped up. He doesn't know how he's going to use his prize money, but those numbers, man, those are the lucky ones. We talked a little bit about this story on the Mark Thompson show, but I had some more details about what is now the most, how do you call it, most expensive or most valuable sports collectible in history. This is the Babe Ruth jersey that the New York Yankees player wore when he hit one of baseball's most famous home runs. And again, it sold for $24.12 million on Sunday, and it makes it the world's most valuable sports collectible. Dallas-based Heritage Auctions said the jersey received the record previously held by a 1952 Mickey Mantle baseball card that went for $12.6 million in 2022 after what they say was a thrilling bidding war that lasted more than 6 hours. So Babe Ruth was wearing this gray jersey number 3 when he played against the Chicago Cubs in the 1932 World Series. He appeared to gesture towards something in the center field just before hitting a 5th-inning home run right into the bleachers. Over the last 92 years, they called it the called shot, and it's become infamous in baseball lore. The auction house said that where Ruth was actually pointing at something deep in the field like the flagpole or a Cubs pitcher, that's been contested over the years, so they don't know. But 100 years later, people are still talking about the called shot, which the Heritage Sports Auctions folks say is incredible. That we're discussing it because the controversy or because there's still a mystery attached. Did Ruth really call the shot? We know he points because there's some grainy footage from someone in the stands, but you can't see in which direction he's pointing. It wasn't until 1939 that baseball games were televised. Again, this was 1932 this happened. So journalists on hand were the first to report what was happening in those days. They say that it was a shot like a billiards game, where you say where you're going to hit it and you hit it there. That's what the journalist of the day said. The auction over the weekend, by the way, showcased other historic sports memorabilia. They had Michael Jordan's Last Dance Chicago Bulls jersey, signed game bat used from baseball great Jackie Robinson. So the Jordan jersey that he wore during the 1998 NBA Finals, called the Last Dance jersey, that went for $10.1 million. Pretty incredible. Yeah. The folks at the auction house say the called shot jersey is now the most significant piece of American sports memorabilia ever offered at auction. I have a picture of the backside of it too. There it is, number 3. It's all stained and kind of tarnished. I mean, it's pretty old, so there it is. It's now in someone's house. We talk about this wonderful lady. Look at her. She is 102 years old, and she decided that for her birthday, she was going skydiving. It was a birthday jump, and she did it for charity. That's right. Her name is Manette Bailey, and she's from England. She was raising money for 3 causes that she says are close to her heart: the East Anglian Air Ambulance, Motor Neurone Disease Association, and the Ben Hall Village Hall. So far, she's managed to raise 9,000 pounds of her 30,000 pound target. She said, when the door opened, I thought, there's nothing more I can do or say, just jump. She said, well, I suppose I jumped. I remember my legs going out. It's kind of a blur. I shut my eyes. We seemed to travel at a very fast speed. And that's it. The family was down on the ground below, and they were yelling, oh my God, look at her, she's done it. They were holding "We're proud of you" banners and "You did it" banners. And just within moments of landing, she was right back up on her feet. Her close friend said she's a complete rock, fearless. She does not dwell on complaining or on tragedies. That's it. Even the people that were jumping with her said it was quite tearful up there, amazing what she's doing. They thought that they were going to have to cancel the jump because of the wind, but they just bumped it up. So that was it. She said there's nothing to be nervous about. You just got to keep going. Just got to do it. She did say that when the door opened, her stomach went. But she is this woman who goes the extra mile to celebrate big milestones in her life. The party afterward involved tea, cake, and big band tunes. They went to the Ben Hall Ex-Servicemen's Club, which is one of the places she's raising money for. So here's the question. What will she do when she turns 103? Could happen, because look at this guy. He is now the world's oldest living man. Yes, he is. I don't think he looks like an old man, but he doesn't look like he's 112 years old. I mean, I guess you get to the point where old is old, you don't look ancient. This is the world's oldest living man. He is celebrating his 112th birthday today at the care home where he lives in England. His name is John Alfred Tenniswood. He was born August 26th of 1912, 4 months after the Titanic sank, and 6 months after Arizona became a state. Tenniswood is now the world's oldest living man, according to the Guinness World Records. He is celebrating his 112th birthday today, and he said this. Didn't really affect me in any way, to be honest with you. Personally, he said the title of the oldest living man doesn't really mean a thing. He's nonchalant about it. In all honesty, he said, no different. I don't feel any different. I don't feel that age. I don't get excited over it. It's probably why I've reached it, he said. I just take it in my stride like anything else. When he was asked, what's the secret to your longevity? He said, I can't think of any special secrets I have. I was quite active as a youngster. I did a lot of walking, he said, but to me, I'm no different at all. He just happens to have, luck and great genetics. 112 years old. Happy birthday to Mr. Tenniswood, who, again, is now the oldest person in the world. I would think, I love his attitude, his nonchalant attitude. Doesn't mean anything to me. Because I'm thinking, if I'm the oldest person in the world, that means I'm going next. Likely not, though. When we talk about these dinosaur prints, how cool is this? These dinosaur footprints are matching. They're matchers. And what's interesting about this is they're on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean. So here's one of them. I like that one because it's very clear. But here they are again, matching dinosaur footprints. The footprints were discovered, one in Africa, one in South America, and they reveal that dinosaurs once traveled along a type of highway 120 million years ago, right before our two continents split apart. This from CNN. Paleontologists have found more than 260 dinosaur footprints from the early Cretaceous period in Brazil and Cameroon. Now, more than 3,700 miles apart on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean. The footprints are similar in age, shape, geologic context. So, were they from the same animal? Most of the fossilized prints were created by three-toed theropod dinosaurs. A few of them belong to sauropods with long necks and tails. The trackways tell a story of how the movements of these massive land masses created ideal conditions for dinosaurs before supercontinents broke apart into the 7 continents that we know today. The footprints were preserved in mud. They sit along these ancient rivers and lakes that once existed on the supercontinent Gondwana. which broke away from the larger landmass of Pangaea. So they say one of the youngest, narrowest geological connections between Africa and South America was what they say is the elbow of northeastern Brazil, which used to be nestled against what's now the coast of Cameroon along the coast of Guinea. The two continents were continuous along this narrow stretch so that animals on either side of the connection could potentially move across it. Africa and South America began to pull apart from each other about 140 million years ago. The separation created rifts in the Earth's crust. The tectonic plates between South America and Africa drifted away, and then magma in the Earth's mantle created the new oceanic crust. Over time, the ocean filled the space between these two continents. Fascinating. And here they are, matching footprints on either side of the world. Speaking of dinosaurs, I wanted to mention this story I saw on SF Gate about the Flintstone House here in the Bay Area. We call it the Flintstone House, right? The Flintstone House is built in such a way that it actually could stand the test of time. Might be around longer than any of the houses we live in. It was built they called it the Dome House when it was built. The Dome House or the Barbappa House. It was painted a burnt orange in 2000, but in the later years, we started calling it the Flintstone House, right? The decor of this house included dinosaurs on the front lawn to play all this up. Well, it looks like this house is built in a way where it could be more, I don't know, resistant to wildfires because of the way it is. It could be more resistant to falling during natural disasters. There was a Cal grad, an architect graduate from UC Berkeley, who looked at this house. And he said, it's a marvel of disaster-proof architecture. He thinks this thing is going to last forever if it continues to be well kept. Painting it, upgrading it, this type of thing. He said it's unignitable, so it won't burn. And an earthquake certainly won't damage it because of the way it's put together. That it will always act as a unit. The reason, he said, why most structures collapse is because parts break off, and that makes the structure very weak, so it's no longer an integrated structure, and it just collapses. But this kind of structure will always be integrated in itself, so it won't be able to break apart. It acts like a unit in any kind of major earthquake or shockwave situation. So he says he thinks this is always going to be around. Can't take it down by fire, can't take it down by earthquake. It's very resistant to things. Well, there you go. The Flintstone House. It's going to be around probably long after we are not. Last story is about the types of love. I thought this was fascinating. Hopefully you can read. I'll show you I'll read this to you just in case you can't make it out on the screen. We'll start top left. This brain is in all four pictures. Romantic love is the top, then parental love, middle, top middle. Love for a friend, top right. Love for a stranger, bottom left. Love for a pet, middle, bottom. And love for nature is on the bottom right. You can see the way the brain lights up depending on what type of love that we're talking about. And scientists were looking at where love is found in the brain. And they were looking at what types of love are the most powerful. So they did MRI scans that shows love mainly resides in the areas of the brain associated with the processing of social cues. Love for one's children generated the most intense brain activity, so intense that it bled over into other parts of the brain as well. You can see the picture there on the top left. By the way, this is all published today in the journal Cerebral Cortex, if you have that one laying around. For parental love, there was activation deep in the brain's reward system in the striatum area, while imagining love, this was not seen for any other kind of love. Interesting. The research done by Aalto University in Finland. Romantic love also generated lots of brain activity, but that activity was really confining itself into the social regions of the brain. Love of nature and animals activated the reward system and visual areas of the brain, but not the social regions involved in the love of other humans, which is interesting. They think this research gives a more comprehensive picture of the brain activity associated with different types of love than previous research. They looked at 55 parents involved in loving relationships for the study. They said, you see your newborn child for the first time. The baby is soft, healthy, and hearty, your life's greatest wonder. You feel love for the little one. Another one was, you are home lolling on the couch and your pet cat pads over to you. The cat curls up next to you and purrs sleepily. You love your pet. And this is where reading this, they then look at the inside of the brain and what's happening, right? Responses to the stories compared to responses for neutral stories in which very little happened, like looking out a bus window or absent-mindedly brushing your teeth. And they say, the researchers, that they were surprised to learn the brain areas associated with love between people ended up actually being pretty similar. That nature and animals didn't strike the same chords of love, with one notable exception. Pet owners have the social areas of the brain normally reserved for human affection light up when they were asked to consider their pets that they loved. When looking at love for pets and the brain activity associated with it, brain areas associated with sociality statistically reveal whether or not the person is a pet owner. When it comes to the pet owners, these areas are more activated than with non-pet owners. So it just depends on who you asked as to how the brain lit up. The Society of Neuroscience has more about the anatomy of emotions as well, so you can find more information on that. But that is where love is found in the brain. Look at love lighting it up all over the place. And that, my friends, is the After Party Live. Please click subscribe. Please click like if you haven't already. And thank you to everyone for spending your time here. I know we're a little late getting started. Thank you also for all the contributions that keep this show rolling. Really appreciate it. Please find the PayPal link at the bottom of the show description. And I'll see you tomorrow on The Mark Thompson Show here on YouTube. David K. Johnston, Jefferson Graham upcoming, and Travel Tuesday tomorrow as well. Contact me if you would like, Kim at theafterparty.live or Kim McAllister at gmail.com. 2 M's, 2 C's, and 2 L's. And until tomorrow, make it a really great day.
The After Party Live would like to thank the following contributors and viewers like you.